Good evening there. You're watching QTV Youth Dialogue and I am your host, Jainaba Sonko. It's always good to be back here. So today I'm really excited because I have a special guest here who is Dr. Satang Nabaneh. Thank you so much for joining me on the program. Yesterday when your story aired, everybody was like, oh, it's Satang. It was like an opportunity for people to remember Satang, probably because you're not on TV a lot.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, thank you for having me here. Yeah, I think that might be partly it. I mean, I have been in the background a bit, you know, just writing and publishing, and, you know, so maybe that's why. But I'm here. I've always been here. Never gone anywhere. So.
Yeah, but I mean on TV.
So
this is a chance to have you on TV more often. Is that a yes?
I mean, you're the celebrity. I'm just, I'm just an academic activist. So,
I am not right now. Like I am not. To start with, academic activist, you made that clarification in our interview, but unfortunately, you know how news items are, where you just have to bring in bits and pieces. That is why you're here, so that we can have something extensive. So why the need to actually differentiate? You know, there's so much stress that you attach to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it has been my motivation to bridge the gap between academia and activism. So I do consider myself, you know, a scholar practitioner or a scholar activist, and my academic work is very much informed by my activism and my advocacy work. I mean, as a child activist and somebody that sort of grew up in the, you know, in a civil society space, activism is in my blood. And for me, part of the motivation for really getting into the academic space was, one, obviously teaching the next generation of human rights, you know, leaders, but also, you know, people that would be in government and making decisions and all of that, but also using my research and the work that I do to further the cause. So whether it has to do with, you know, women's political participation, whether it has to do with constitutional frameworks and things like that. I do really want my scholarly work to have a public engagement face in, and so fits into, and that is why I have been very big in terms of doing advocacy that's evidence-based and using sort of the work.
That's amazing. So I'm just going to go back to the story again. You know, at the ending, I mentioned how amazing it is to see somebody outstanding since the individual was a child. You know, you winning awards way back in 2002, 2003, Outstanding Student Methodist Academy, all these amazing awards at the time, you know, and till now. You're making me blush. No, but it's amazing. It's amazing, you guys. So we need to mention. So how did that come about? You know, that hunger, because I'm like, this is hunger to actually move, considering the trend never changed. I think, well, I mean, hunger has been part of it. I mean, yesterday with our conversation, I think it's just the, you know, the determination to be the best that I could be. I think that has always sort of, you know, motivated me. But I also think that partly, and I think, you know, I sort of discussed this with somebody yesterday because we were talking about how people present themselves on social media. And my take was that my interaction is quite measured because of, you know, I have always felt like I had an eye behind my back. As a charter activist, I started like 8, 9 years old and have been in sort of the public eye in the majority of my time, from growing up to, you know, to who I am today. I've always felt like I needed to be a role model. I needed to watch my stuff. I know that, you know, sometimes, you know, in hindsight, you might think, maybe she didn't have a great childhood. You know, I couldn't do the things that my friends and age mate will do because, I mean, I was in meetings and, you know, meeting presidents and doing other things that were, well, boring. And you know what's
important
funny?
But boring.
Satang, it's funny that you said this. You know why? Just yesterday, I was editing the voiceover for the story. So Nix, I think you were in the same school. So Nix, hi Satang, you don't represent them. No. You know? So when he said that, I'm like, now I'm trying to connect
it is funny. So today well, I'm sure we'll talk about the book, but today we were back at UTG, which is home to me, right? Because when I finished my LLB, I was part of the second batch. When I finished my LLB, did my master's, I came back and became the youngest lecturer. And I was saying how weird it was to teach, you know, folks that were my parents. So that was weird. But anyway, but the point is, you know, during that time as well, you know, today Sid was telling about this story about how a high school teacher of ours was saying, who wants to be Satang Nabaneh? There was something. And then, you know, but I think I have always knew that I had responsibilities, not just to myself, but to other young people, but also to, you know, older folks that have been my mentors throughout my life. And so, yeah, I suppose. I mean, I suppose that makes me a boring person, but a very measured person. If that makes sense.
And I'm happy about the fact that you watch your steps, knowing that there's need for us to have more role models, you know, and that is part of the reasons that you are the Force alum to be, to actually have a PhD in law, and that's amazing.
Thank you.
How did that feel, you know? At least now we can point at you as that person.
Yeah, I mean, it feels great. As you know, I think, and we spoke about it a little bit briefly. I think partly one, as you know, as a woman. I mean, in the Gambia, there obviously aren't quite a number of a lot of women with PhDs. I mean, that's one. But I think also part of the motivation for me, well, apart from my own personal and professional career aspirations as well, was this idea that you know, a person that have gone through the university, especially the Faculty of Law, which was quite a young faculty at that time, with all the limited resources and limitations that comes with, you know, being in UTG, we all know, can go on and advance in his or her career and be the best, whether it's at the African continental level or internationally with sort of the teaching that I do in the university in the US. So I think that was part of it, just to prove that, you know, UTG is also UTG are also capable.
UTG every day you have to send UTG example so you know we can still go to UTG and compete at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
I'm also part of the examples, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I think for me part of the thing is not really so much as where you go. I mean, it is important, especially with regard to social capital and sort of the sort of environment that we find ourselves. But I think also partly is also what you do with, you know, where you find yourself. And I think I mentioned it yesterday, but I also feel like part of it is, you know, education obviously with all the degrees are great, but I think for me it was less about a degree and more about what I have learned outside of the four corners of the classroom. Right. Which was important to me, both from, you know, being a child activist, youth activism going on, but also within the spaces that I find myself. So I think in a sense, and that is really the trajectory I have tried to be followed in terms of, yes, I love academia, I love writing, I love all of the stuff that comes with it, including teaching, but I also want my work and the things that I do to be relevant that makes an impact. I mean, teaching is great, but it's boring.
Yeah, but it can be fun at the same time. So let's talk about the hub quickly. Okay. You know, which is, I've used the hub, the law hub, you know, several times. If I need any information relating to facts and figures and everything. So I think it's a really good platform.
Thank you.
And I think it is a good thing that it's also created to encourage more people to write and come up with evidence-based stuff. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, so part of the book project and you know, and very much linked to Law Hub itself was really thinking of Law Hub within the context of our own transition, obviously from an authoritarian regime to a democratic one, but one where there are a lot of developments happening, whether it had to do with the CRC or the TRRC or other things as well. And partly the motivation was, where can we have a platform where we can sort of capture what is happening so that people can get things at the tips of their fingers, but also in terms of just thinking around this idea. And as I said, I do a lot of research that is focused on Gambia. And the challenge has been in terms of getting access to any sort of information, especially if you're looking at judgments or laws and things like that. So the motivation for really creating Law Hub was that we wanted to, it's not a money-making, it's open access, and there is, the open access movement is a global movement in terms of just being able to, and you have all of these legal information institute like Law Hub around the world, but also regionally as well. And so part of it was really in terms of how do we give the information to people to empower them to be able to know what is happening, but to and knowing obviously means that they're in a position to demand for accountability, which especially within our current context is very important.
Yeah, so I'm just going to shift the conversation to a personal level a little bit. Can you imagine? Somebody called me today because the first answer story from Dimba.
Yeah, sure.
So Jainaba, Dr. Satang Nabaneh made it clear that you can be married, raise a child, at the same time be a scholar. What are you waiting for? I'm like, why are you asking me?
Yeah, I mean...
so how do you do it?
Yeah, I mean, please, Harold, but time is just
wow.
I think that's important, and not not everybody has to have to be married.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
But I mean, how do I do it? I don't know. I mean, I suppose I'm a superhero.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. No. I am absolutely not a supermom.
Yeah.
I think partly is having a village, because I think, with the sort of work that I do, with the sort of interest, and I mean, I'm here. I left my kids somewhere. I was like, I told my husband, I'm going. I'll see you in 2 weeks. So I mean, it takes a sort of person to be able to be that supportive to their spouse, and I think that's for me that is the one big takeaway.
Manam gorbi dafa wara supportive.
Exactly.
Wow.
I mean,
yes.
Yes, true. So I mean, so my husband has always been very supportive of my, of my crazy ideas. I mean, in certain cases, he's like, "Why are you having a second thought? Just go for it. We'll figure things out."
Amazing.
So that's part of it. But I also think, as I said, it's part of the village as well, right? So when I was doing the PhD, at one point, Mahi, who's 8, my son, we sort of shipped him off to Gambia. So he came and stayed with, the grandparents.
Yeah.
And partly is for him to know the culture and know the people.
That's a good thing.
But also it takes a level of comfortability to be able to say, I'm sending my child. And I actually did, funnily enough, a book chapter on feminist parenting, and I spoke about, about that experience. And, Gambians, not just in the Gambia, but even abroad and elsewhere, have this notion, and I think it's not just Gambians. It's the perception that is tied to women being, the traditional rules of being a mother and a wife.
Right.
And so when I tell somebody, oh, suma domi mu ngi Gambia, they're like,
what's happening?
Like, I mean, and then other things. I mean, that seems very innocent, but it is just another way of saying you're a bad mother.
Yeah.
And so for me, I did that book chapter, which is less scholarly, which is scholarly, but it's a very personal reflection.
Yeah.
For me, was filtering that out and trying to come to the terms that, I mean, I hope at the end of the day that my son and now my daughter will realize that their mother, lived her best life, did what she wanted to do, and at the end of the day, they should be better off. I mean, if they're not better off, I don't know. I mean, they'll be fine.
So I think we have 4 minutes to go.
Sure.
So quickly, hamna na small about book bimum dang madu.
Sure.
So we're just going to take a look at that now. So tell us about it. The Gambia in transition towards a constitutional order. Yeah,
sure. So just quickly, with the book, which is co-edited by myself. Thank you. It's beautiful. Mr. Gay So, who is funnily enough was a former lecturer of mine. Now I forced him to write. And then Adam Abebe. And partly, as I said, the concept of the book really was that we were going through all these processes. Like, we wanted to contribute towards that conversation about what pathways, especially in terms of having a comprehensive audit of the state of human rights, the state of democracy, and rule of law in the Gambia, and what are the challenges and the future prospects, especially given that our constitutional replacement project has stalled, and what's next for us. So this book, which will be launched on Friday by the Chief Justice, he was, we're very honored that he actually wrote the foreword. And for us, this is partly our contribution towards the stage that the Gambia is in relation to the transitional justice process, which we know is an ambitious process, but also ongoing, and that it's fragile, and that, we all, in one way or the other, can contribute towards that. So this is, in some small part, my contribution to that.
This is, I think, viewpoint. Mr. Mbouch can take it up from here, because we just touched the surface, and he was even talking to me about, look,